Right, we are going to make a multicolour t-shirt out of 2 t-shirts. So I started off, I hope you can see this, it's not very, I only get like a tiny postage stamp to make sure I've seen everything. So it's a purple t-shirt and we're putting sleeves on it because it was a normal t-shirt and the sleeves weren't long enough and it's annoying me. So I put long sleeves on. Now, last week we cut up an orange t-shirt, do you remember? To make, ta-da!
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and making string and stuff. All right. We also made a pot holder, and I also showed that I've made a bath mat beforehand. So the size of the project's entirely up to your enthusiasm. So I started off with a plain olive green shirt. And what I did was I very carefully unpicked the seam here by, when you get an overlock, let me show you on this one. If you have to unpick the seam, I hope you can see this on my camera. You have 4 lines of thread. So you get 1 line going along here, 1 line going along there, and you have zigzaggies in between. So if you literally cut those and unpick that bit, the whole thing will unravel. So you undo the inside straight row. Okay. I haven't got anything else here that's, there we go. So on here, you can see it a bit better on this pale green because it's got cross stitching. So you unpick this bit here. Can you see the bottom row? You break that and then unpick it, and then the whole thing will come undone. Okay?
Yep.
So once we've done sleeves, so this sleeve, as you can see, has been unpicked. You can cut them off, but you need the shape so that when you put them back on, it helps. So on this sleeve, I have put in orange sleeves. Ta-da! Bit of a bright colour. Okay, so what I've done is I've turned the sleeve so that the raw edge, which is the underarm seam, goes into the fabric like that, and then stitch round using a back stitch, which I have demonstrated before, but I can do it again if you don't know how to do a back stitch. And then once that's done, the sleeve looks normal from the outside. But because we're extending it again, we're going to get the sleeve that we cut off originally, or deconstructed earlier, and we're going to draw a line from the highest part of the underseam straight across. So this is a right angle on the sleeve. So cut that bit off, ta-da! And then we put it the wrong way round inside the orange bit. So we pushed it all the way in here. I'll show you on the other sleeve because it's easier. So this is the one we've cut off, and we put it the right side out. I haven't cut this one yet, but I'll do it now. So we're going to cut it along that line that we drew earlier.
Yep.
And we're going to pop a pin in the exact opposite from where the seam is. That is the top of the sleeve. So you can use glass-headed pins, you can use ordinary pins, use a safety pin, but you just need to mark it, you don't need to keep it in there. So with the seam looking the right way out, we pop that in there, into the sleeve, which is inside out. Then we match the seam up with the other underarm seam, like that. Sorry, I've got it's the wrong way around. I forgot what I was doing. So it's inside out. We gather it up and we put it over the sleeve. Upside down. Always does when I try and demonstrate. I can't actually see what I'm doing, so I'm just hoping that you can see it with the camera. So we've got the underarm sleeve, underarm seam matched up with the underarm seam of the short sleeve, and we're going to pin that in place. No, that's not going to work. It does have to be the right way up. Sorry.
That's right.
Just anyway, we've got the underarm seam. We match it up with the underarm seam, but that has to be the right way out, because when we pull it out, it's going to be the right way. So we can actually sew it here and then pull it that way. So we're going to line this up. Make sure this seam folds that way and the other seam folds that way. That means it's less of a bulk, so you don't have both bits folded the same size. Side. Line them up, and you have the two lines of the stitching, so you need to just go over both lines of stitching and hold it in place with a pin. The creaking is my chair, sorry.
That's fine.
So we're going to hold that in place there, and we found the top of the sleeve earlier, so literally it's just opposite. So you just pull it taut, and then that's the top of the sleeve of the orange bit. So we're now, once we've marked that, if in doubt, put a pin through it, simple. Then we're now going to match these two up, making sure we're just covering the two lines of the stitching. And you'll see why in a second. And line that up, pop the pin in. Then we're going to go around, finish pinning it, and literally you just make sure, so you go for the two sides, so the top and the bottom and the middle of the side. Doesn't have to be precise, it's only pins. Just make sure you cover the stitching. And again, pin it in the middle, and so on and so on. So you have at least 5 to 6 pins either side. Then what we do, here's one I did earlier, is then back stitch.
Yeah.
Quite enthusiastic with this one, nearly finished it. And what you do is you, a tip to save your fingers, by the way, Paul.
Yeah.
If, you know the litre bottles of, I use ginger beer, you know?
Yeah.
What I've done is I cut the top off the bottle, off the cap, and then cut about 2-3 inches down and then slit it. This, over your fingers, saves your hands getting stabbed. So, you doing that, and then you literally just go over with matching thread that line of stitching, okay, on the back stitch. So you go under two of these stitches.
Yeah.
So you try it with green. So you go under 2 like that, pull that through, and then you go through the one in between and come out of 2. So you only get 1 stitch at a time on here, but underneath it's cool. So that's called a back stitch. So you back stitch it all round.
Yeah.
So you get that effect when you pull it straight. And then what I've done here to hide the raw edges is I've gone back with an orange thread this time, because then if I catch it and it shows on the other side, it won't show, if that makes sense. So again, orange. And again, I've literally just put it into the material, and I've very carefully just caught the inside edge of that hem. So there I've gone all the way through. but as you can see there, I haven't. So you literally just catch the edge of that fabric.
Okay.
So it holds it down, so you don't have the raw edges showing, but it doesn't show on the outside. So you can either use a shield for that or just be careful. So you go around and it finishes off like that, so it's nice and neat. And then on the outside, you won't see that at all. Don't worry, I know there's pins, and you end up with a sleeve looking like that. So you end up with two-tone. Okay, and the only reason you can tell it's been stitched is because you've got the slightly white match, but you can just see the slightly darker thread. So after doing these sleeves, I thought, well, I've still got all these other bits that I cut off the other shirt. So what I'm hiding the label, you can tell. I then put the collar that I cut off the other shirt next to the collar on the other shirt, so you end up with a double collar.
Yeah, and it also means that
it's
one colour in one spot. It's just going to be different. It's in a different spot, which makes it
right. So you've got contrast collar as well now.
Yeah.
And I did a hem as well. So we've got a contrast hem. So the whole thing, if I turn this around the outside, make sure there's no pins in the way. Don't forget, I haven't finished putting the pins in on the other sleeve because I was trying to show you how to do it. And then you end up with a snazzy shirt like this. So you end up with a contrast collar.
Yeah.
So you've got two-tone collar and two-tone sleeves. And two-tone around the bottom. So it looks like you're wearing two shirts, but you're not. Let me finish pinning this sleeve in and I'll show you how to do that back stitch, because that took a lot less time than I thought it was, but then it's because I've done half of it already. Right, so what we've done again is the bottom half of the sleeve is the right way out, the rest of the t-shirt's the wrong way out.
Yeah.
Just making sure I'm not stabbing myself. And then we've started pinning this so that it just covers the double stitching. I've just finished doing that. So again, just go middle all the time. It's the easiest method. And because it's a t-shirt, you need to pull the fabric just slightly so that when you put the stitches through, when you're putting the t-shirt on later on, the stitches actually stretch with the t-shirt. Because if you do them too tight and you try and put your t-shirt on, you want to get your head through the neck, for example.
Yeah.
You need to make them slightly loose. So we've now finished pinning all this in place. I'm going to get some orange thread. I thought I had one lined up, but I don't know what I've done with it. On the end of these cotton reels, I've done
over by your green finger cap.
Yes, but it's green. That's for the bottom.
Oh, I just saw a light thread and I thought, oh,
about 3 needles going at once, don't worry. On the end of these reels, I don't know if you noticed, there's a little gap at the bottom, and that's for doing this. You basically hold the thread still and then wrap the thread in that hole.
Yeah.
It stops coming off. Stops coming off. Stops unraveling on you. Find needle. So I've got to thread up on needle. And tying up the bottom. I always use double thread, and then however hard you pull the thing, it doesn't come off the needle. Some people just use single thread. It's personal preference. And another tip, piece of bar of soap, run the thread over it, sorts the kinks out, and also makes it easier to sew. So I'm going to start
You just have bars of soap and beeswax just lying around.
I tend to, yes. Beeswax if I'm using it for leather, but bars of soap if it's anything else. And I'm going to use my finger shield. So we're going to fold it over the finger shield. Start it from the back. Well, bars of soap are like cheap as chips. You can get them in Poundland or anything. You can get them in Tesco. Doesn't have to be scented, you know, just need
Plain white soap.
Yeah, just plain white soap.
Or you could just pick up of it and cut it into strips you need.
Yes, basically, if you use a cheese knife, funny enough, you've got one, or just a very sharp knife, you can just cut a piece off and then use the soap, because as you can see from this one, I've used it several times to do thread.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy, and if you can actually draw on the fabric as well, and draw funny faces or markings and stuff, and you just rub, and it just rubs off. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to follow, hope you can see this, these stitches. So we're going to go in through one and out through the second one. The tip is never to have the thread too long, because otherwise you just knot it up all the time. So we go back into the one that we haven't gone through, and then out through two. And as you can see, that's actually caught the top of the fabric there. But all you can see on the outside, if you matched the thread colour, is just a slightly thicker line of stitching. So again, in through one, out through the second one, and then go into the one you haven't been through and out for a second one, and you just rinse and repeat all the way around. It's quite easy because you don't have to worry about making it too big or too small, because you're actually following all stitches that are already there. So long as you don't leave lots of knots or loops, you won't even know it's there unless you've done it. Yes. So the whole point of doing these adjustments to your clothes is it looks like it's come off the shelf in the supermarket rather than that you've done them yourself. Or, of course, you can just put your own personality on it and do them quirky. You can even get thread that comes out rainbow, so it changes colour as you sew. And you could just put a line of rainbow around it so they can see that you've added it yourself. If you do get a loop, if you pull the loop, you can see on the bit that you're sewing that it goes tight. So if you pull the tight one, then that reduces the loop.
Oh.
And if you get a knot, if you put the needle through the loop on the knot and just twiddle it a bit, it usually just unpings and undoes. But the trick is never to pull them tight, because if they're tight, then you won't be able to undo them. So just be gentle with them.
Well, I've just got a loop now sewing, so.
Yeah. So you pull the one where the needle is.
Yeah.
Right. So you pull the loop tight where you've got the loop.
Yeah.
The bit you're trying to reduce. Okay. And you can see on the bit where the needle is that one side has been tight. So you pull the tight one, and that's the excessive one. So it's pulled one way and not the other.
Yep.
And that's how you reduce it. That's another reason for the soap, because it slides around each other and it doesn't catch. So again, in through two. And then back in the one that you haven't sewn. As long as you don't catch the pins on the other side, you can get this done quite quickly. because you don't have to worry about sizes and how neat it is because you're actually following something else. So I hope you can. Yeah, I just realised I just did that and you can't see it. So you've gone in through 2 stitches. The thread comes out the middle. And if you can untangle from the pins. And then back in through that one and out for the next one. So everyone gets like a double stitch. Trying to work sideways is quite interesting. Another trick is if you're wearing trousers and you're trying to pull something taut rather than tight, and you obviously you're using one hand to sew, if you pin the other side to your trousers, making sure you don't stab yourself, you can then create a constant tension so that when you're trying to sew, you're not having to keep moving your hands all the time because it's one hand's holding it still while the other one's doing the stitching. Does that make sense?
Question here.
Yeah, sure.
I've got a pair of combats. It's got, and on the knees, they've got a pouch that can hold knee pads, but where the pouch is, it's ripped. And I can't very easily turn it inside out to stitch it. So what would you recommend to do there?
Does the stitching on the pouch go all the way through to the back, or is it double skinned?
It's double skinned.
It's double skinned. If you can get a bit of card in between, so you don't stitch the under bit that you don't want to touch through, then when you're sewing, when the needle hits the card, you just bring the needle back out through the fabric.
Okay.
So like I've got the protector here, you can put a bit of card in between, especially with sewing pockets and things. Let me try and find something with a pocket. 1 second. Here's a pair of jeans that I'm gonna pack about later. So if you're trying to sew the jeans, sorry, most of my gear is black. If you're trying to sew the jeans but you don't want to go all the way through, if you put a piece of cardboard inside the pocket or a piece of thick paper, whichever, like that, it not only stops you sewing all the way through, you can actually feel with the needle when you're going through to the paper, so you can then protect your fingers as well as sew the pocket without going through to the back of the pocket, so you don't sew the pocket shut. Does that make sense? Yeah. So piece of cardboard, bit of paper, or I don't know, credit card or something. It depends on the size of the hole.
But preferably an old credit card.
Yeah. Or even
an old business card. You got one.
An old business card, a bit of cardboard, even a table mat, like you put your drinks on, a drink coaster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just obviously not the stitched or woven kind, because you won't be able to feel when you hit the fabric. But just something stiff or unyielding, I think the word is. Or even a plastic bag. If you've got a stiff plastic bag like this one I've used to put my threads in, if you pop that in, you can actually feel between the pockets. I hope that helped.
Yeah.
Or even a piece of newspaper, just fold it up a couple of times.
Yeah.
So just anything that prevents or restricts the needle so that you can feel the difference between where you're stitching and where you're not stitching. It's why they sell those toadstool shaped wooden things that you put inside socks, because you then stretch the sock over it and then you can darn the sock.
I just had the thread go out of my needle, so I could pull it back first.
Do you use a needle threader, or do you use...
No, I don't use a needle threader. Oh, there is one in the little kits that's supposed to sewing machine that we're getting. And that's got a needle threader there.
Yeah.
As well as
it's sometimes easier. If not, if you haven't got a needle threader, if you use an extra piece of thread that's quite strong, and then poke a loop through and then pull the fine thread through, and it makes it easier. Or especially if you're using more than one piece of thread.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a really strong seam, you can actually double up the thread. Excuse me. And sometimes you need a needle threader for that. And again, if a pin or a needle is hard to push through the fabric, just poke it into the bar of soap. So that also helps. So that's why I have the needle. Push through the fabric, just poke it into helps. So that's why I always keep. So once we've finished doing the whole sleeve like this, as I showed you earlier on the other sleeve, we're literally going to pull that back over and then just stitch it down so that it's nice and smooth. So it just doesn't show the raw edges. So that's what that second row is for, that you can just about see. There again, you've just caught the underside of this bit. So as you can, if I do that, you can just see the stitches where they've come through. And that's how you put sleeves on the end of a t-shirt. I hope you... That's not too bad. It's a bit gathered up in one place, but it's not bad. Sometimes on combat trousers, where they have, I think it's called a bellows pocket, where you've not only got the pocket like I showed you on my jeans, but they have an extra bit of fabric between the main fabric of the trousers and the top of the pocket, so it's like an edge on it.
Yeah, that sounds like my combats.
Yeah. If you find they're too floppy, if you get some elastic thread called shirring elastic, so just stuff that stretches, or even if you use the stuff that you put beads on, this sort of stuff, but it's elastic, but you can get it in black as well, right? If you sew that down the side of the pocket between the edge of the pocket and the main bit of the fabric, if you just give me a second, I'll go and grab some trousers that I've done it to. What I've done is this bit always gapes, so I've literally, sorry, I'm shouting, I've literally just sewed in a zigzag. Obviously you can do it with the same colour so you can't see it, so if you just zigzag, but when you put something in it, it stretches, but it actually goes flat when it's on the trouser. So it stretches to fit, but it goes flat when you finish with it.
That's quite good.
So I'm actually going to, you see this bit here on the side, this is what the bellows pocket is, that bit. And I'm actually going to do it around there and around the bottom, because these just stick out like, I don't know, as if I've stuck a canteen on the side of my trousers, you know.
Yeah.
So, I'm actually going to change that for a grey. I've got some grey, and do it around the side as well. So the whole pocket goes flat when you don't need it, so it's smoother and you don't catch it on everything. But when you put stuff in, it will just stretch. Well, as I say, you can buy elastic quite cheap. this was in a beading set, but you can get it in loads and loads of different colours on my favourite website. So I will leave you there. I hope you managed to finish your repairs.
Yep, I did to his pajamas. And now I know what to do for my combats.
And I've got to say goodbye for now, and thank you for watching.